All right. Hello, clarinet players. If you are a clarinet player, this is the right video for you because we're going to be learning how to take a clarinet that's in a case that's like this. This one's green, yours may be a different color, and turning into this. Now you see an obvious problem with the clarinet right now. Like obviously we're going to have to do some construction here, which is why I have my handy clarinet cam. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the latches. The latches are actually a very important step, so your latches may look different, but learn how sometimes they're snap off. But open up those latches, and then you're always going to make sure that whichever direction the latches open, that you're going to open up your case the other way. I'm going to open it towards you guys so you can kind of see here all these different parts. We have all these different parts for the clarinet, and here we go. So let's talk about this stuff really quick. This stuff is actually called cork grease, and it's not chapstick for your lips. It's like special chapstick just for clarinets, well, and actually flutes too, flutes and saxophones. And it's for the cork. And this is the cork right over here. And there's a bunch of parts of corks. We have 1 part, 2 part, 3 part, 4 parts of cork, and they're the parts that are going to be fitting together. So what the cork grease does is this is going to provide just a little extra slipperiness so that as you're putting in that cork, it doesn't get stuck. You know, maybe this is not an everyday thing, but maybe just add a little bit. If ever you feel like a little bit of tension on there, maybe just add a little cork grease on there. Just makes it nice and smooth for when you put these things together. So I'm going to start with the biggest piece. I'm going to start with the bell. Different clarinet players have different opinions on the order. I'm going to start with the most obvious piece on the bottom here. And I'm going to add a little cork grease to my finger. And I'm going to try to find the biggest cork. So there's the biggest cork here. I'm going to put that together just like this. Now it's kind of a, try not to hold on to any of the hardware here. Try to hold on to the wood or kind of the stem of the clarinet here. And you're going to twist and push. Okay, good. Now it's all the way in. Okay, now I'm going to take the next piece here, pull it out. Hey, we have some dry cork here, so I'm going to add on some cork grease on both ends. Okay. And now I'm going to take a look at that. Now here's actually a little part in here. There's a little tiny tab that's at the top of this kind of midsection here. This tab has to match up with this little tab here. It's like this is a lifter and this is a puller. Okay. And so those are going to have to fit together. So as I'm pushing this together, kind of making sure I don't squeeze on things too much, pushing those in, and then I'm going to take a look at these little parts right there and making sure that these little parts right here are fitting together. There's one that goes on top of the other. Very important. Now I'm going to try to show you guys when you first put this together where that is. Now next part that goes on this, I already put some cork grease there. That's the barrel. And guess what the barrel is shaped like? It's shaped like a little barrel here. So that's pretty easy to do. And again, we twist and push. And then lastly, I have the mouthpiece. Actually, this really isn't the last part of it, but I'm going to go ahead and push that on. I already put some cork grease on there earlier, so I'm good. Notice I'm not pushing on any of the metal. Okay. Now the mouthpiece here has some different parts to it. So when I pull off the cap is obviously supposed to protect the mouthpiece from any damages. And we have 2 thumb screws here that I can use. Okay, so these thumb screws, when I loosen them, are going to take off the ligature. Now, I always really like, I probably wouldn't do this in this exact formation, but it's easiest for me to do on the video. So the ligature I pull off, and this is like the holder for the reed. Now, you should have some reeds that come along with your clarinet. Okay, either maybe your family has bought a pack of 10, or Mr. Dean has given you a couple of reeds. I'm going to kind of focus here, making sure we're all good. And these reeds, I'm going to pull it out. I never touch the thin part with my finger. And that's all the part that goes in your mouth too. Some players like to put it in their mouth really quick to kind of wetten it up. This is the part of your clarinet that vibrates. Okay. First step I'm going to do is I'm going to put the ligature that's right on there. I'm going to make sure that I'm making sure that my video's in focus here. And I'm going to make sure that lines up. So that's obviously too high. This is obviously too low. Make sure it lines up right with the top. This is called the heart of the reed. I'm going to hold it down with one finger, and I'm going to put my ligature over the top. Now, some clarinet players like to have their ligature on this side, and some like the other side. I kind of like this because of the look of it. And I'm going to try to get these tightening bands to be below the heart of it. When the heart is like where this little cut is, right here. So I'm going to try to get it behind there. And then I'm going to go over to this thumb screws. Now you don't have to go crazy on this, but you're making sure that that reed is nice and taut. Okay. Now I'm going to point out a couple things, the way I know that this clarinet is put together. If it's put together correctly, these holes are going to line up. So we have a couple holes down here on the bottom, a couple tone holes up at the top, and these are all going to line up. If you see something like that looks a little funny to me. Something like this, that looks a little funny. And if you ever feel that like keys are stuck, they're not working, take a look. If it's a good idea, see if you can pull it apart, maybe at the middle, and put it back together again. And once you have these parts in store, we're going to start with where to put our fingers. Okay. Now the first one to think about is, okay, these are the front, so that's where your left hand goes, right here. And on the back of there, where your left hand goes, there's like this long one right here. That's where your left thumb goes. That's the thumb hole. And what I do is I like to kind of pinch, and there's a little switch here. You have to go down below that. 1, 2, 3. Line up your 3 fingers. And then your right thumb can land on this little thumber thing. Now, everyone's thumber thing, some of them are metal, some are a little different. That's where that goes. And so when I line it up right here, looking back at the front here, I'm going to kind of adjust my mouthpiece. I got a little off. I'm going to take my thumb. I'm not going to take any of my right fingers here. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, have those lined up. Now bring it up to my mouth. Okay. Now this is where we have to have a good seal. We call this the embouchure. Kind of a funny word, but it's the seal that you use for your mouth and playing. And then I put my lower lip against the reed, and I try to make a seal with the rest of my lip. And try to use my muscles right here. Hold it. And I use a decent amount of air. Not too much, not too little. Hey, I'm feeling pretty good on my first note. If you squeaked, that might be an issue. We'll kind of work on the squeaks as we go. There's so many reasons that people squeak. Sometimes because, maybe you're pressing a button over here. Sometimes you're too tense, like maybe you're really trying to squeeze it, and it makes a squeak all of a sudden. You want to make sure that you're pretty relaxed, but your goal is to not get that higher note, but this nice lower note. That's pretty good again. If you're having trouble squeaking, you can also hold up over here to make sure you don't accidentally press any buttons. I kind of got a squeak there. So just know that, even adults struggle with this sort of thing. It's pretty normal to have some kind of squeaking going on at first until you learn how to control. This is really what you do for your first note. Your goal is to kind of like get your fingers in the right place and give it a try. Relax and try it again. The more often you do just this kind of basic thing with your fingers in the right place, the quicker that you're going to be learning how to play the clarinet. Okay, now is the tricky part. The tricky part is taking everything apart without damaging it and putting it back in. And to make sure it's not damaged, we of course have our cleaning cloth right here. So probably the most sensitive part of the entire clarinet is the reed. You should make sure that you never like chip your reed or like put your tooth on it, things like that. It'll damage the reed, and then you'll have to get a new one. They do cost about $2 a piece. So this is one of those times where if you are not very good with things, this is a place where you can either spend a lot of money or save a lot of money. And so now I'm going to show you how to do this. So let's literally go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to start with the ligature, okay? And I'm going to take off this reed. Now many of the reeds, Whoop, careful. That's a moment that I can really get damaged. Oftentimes these reeds come with little reed holders. Not sure where I put mine amongst all this stuff over here, but there's a little tiny plastic sleeve that comes with the reed, and it will slide. Oh, look at this. It's right here in my hand. And I'm going to slide it back in. Okay, sometimes it helps to start with the base. Okay, and I'm going to start there. I'm going to slide it in ever so carefully. If you feel like you're forcing it, it's probably doing the wrong thing. Okay, and then I'll slowly, you know, maybe it won't fully dry, but it'll kind of chill out there. So this is going to be one of these accessories that we're going to put in a place in our case that we know is not going to fit any other parts. Okay, and then I'm going to take my ligature and I'm going to put it back on my mouthpiece. But you know what though? I just blew some notes on this, and so there might be some moisture on the inside. Okay, there's a couple ways we can do this. I'm going to show you kind of one way just on the mouthpiece. So this inside each one of these strings is a little tiny, it's usually like a little tiny weight, so it's a little heavier. And you drop it inside, and look how the weight is really going to help it go through the mouthpiece. Here, let's do it. There. And then we can pull this string, and with a little luck, it pulls throughout the entire thing. And look at that, all the moisture is gone. Okay? And moisture is bad, because when you leave moisture inside of your case, that means that, well, mildew or just generally stinky things are going to happen inside of your case. I forgot to put the cap on my cork grease, so I'm going to make sure I do that. Very important. Okay. Now here comes the hard part. You're going to have to look at your case. Okay, that part's for the bell. These are for the long parts. The shorter areas, okay, so this one's for the mouthpiece right here. So I'm going to put my mouthpiece there. Okay, and now I'm going to do something, you know, some clarinet players do these individually. I'm going to run the string down the whole thing. So drop the string in the top. In you go. And you can see how that little weight in there is really helpful. Okay, this is really important. I'm never going to force anything. I can pull a little bit, but if I feel anything get stuck or caught, I am going to go ahead and pull really gently. And notice how I didn't hear any strange sounds or didn't get stuck or anything like that. Last thing you want to do is have your cleaning rag stuck. And now that I know this is all nice and dry, I'm going to hold, twist, pull off the barrel, find the place that fits the barrel best, hold, twist, pull off this little midsection here. Now this is where I'm going to have to be a little bit crafty. I forgot where this part came from. So it might be good to, as you're putting it in the case, you know, you might want to take a look and try out different, so, well, that way doesn't work and this one doesn't work. So go and try to find the best shape, and you'll get much more use to which way it goes with a little bit of practice. This way always has a thumb thing, so you might see an indent that fits that thumb part. Okay, I think that's the right area. And then of course, there's an area that looks like it's going to fit the bell. Okay, and well, my friends, that's really how you do it. I want to point out something really important, and that is how we close the case. Notice I'm going to take my cloth here. Make sure that you dry out your cloth every so often. This one doesn't really have a lot of moisture on it. I guess you could lay it on top. You could put it off to the side. If you're really smart, you would put it somewhere else. But I understand if you keep your cleaning cloth inside of here, kind of part of the deal. And you're going to close it. Very important step are the latches. If you just pick this up and go, all your clarinet parts are going to fly everywhere and they're going to bend. That's the last thing that you want. So I'm going to take these latches and I'm going to close each one, double check before I pop it up, and the clarinet is all put away. All right, guys, that was a lot of talking on my part, but that's how you take out and put together your clarinet and make a couple sounds on it. I recommend that for the first week that you guys are doing this every day. Take it all out, put it all together, make sure you're doing the cork grease, make a couple sounds, pull it apart and put it away, and practice that a few times. The faster you get at this, the more enjoyable and actually the more teaching I can do in band. Well, guys, that's everything you need to know about a clarinet, at least for the time being. Until next week. my friends. I'll see you later.